Hi, this is Judy Pullinen. I am Superintendent for the Battenkill Valley Supervisory Union, and I am here today with Jerry Woodard, who is our Chairman of the Arlington School Board, and Jamie Paustian, who is our Facilities Director. And we're here to talk about the upcoming facilities renovation project, which will be voted on at Town Meeting Day. Some of the things we want to talk about today is how we came to a decision to have a facilities project, why we want to do it now, what we're going to do, and how much it's going to cost. So we'll just start with how we came to the decision. Jerry, you want to talk about that a little?
Well, I got back on the board here a year and a half ago, and I sat with Jamie on many times, and we went through the school and looked at all of the things that needed to be taken care of. Because it had been it's been 15 years since we had a major project at school. And in the interim, things that you really want to take care of usually get set aside. And we had some real issues with big things like heating, gym structure. And so we decided to put a committee together to investigate all the stuff that needed to be done. We got Black River Design to come in and help us in many areas that we needed help with. And this was a way to try and bring our school in compliance with a lot of things. So we've had several meetings, and we started out with a big number, which we've whittled down now to a smaller number, and we hope that we can explain some of that to you here today.
Good. So why there's been a lot of discussion, and sometimes people say, let's wait until the bond vote that we had is up in 2020. And let's just talk a little bit about why we decided to do it now. What is the need for this project?
Well, some of the need is driven by energy savings. We've got both heating systems at the high school and the elementary have not been working properly. Many of the components of them are outdated and are unrepairable. So in order to save money, by investing money into the system, we can save money moving forward in energy savings, fuel oil, and electricity. As far as the gym structure, that kind of goes along the same things. We're looking at the safety aspect of the school as well as the energy savings with some real big energy loss in the school through the heating, through the walls and the roof, because there is little to no insulation in the building. So in order to make the building more safe structurally wise and secure and heating wise, that's some of the bigger projects.
And some of the other things that we talked about, and I think the public needs to know that we had a committee, and the three of us were on it. We also had Deanne Lacoste, the elementary principal, Tim Stewart, the high school principal, and Mark Clotter as a community representative, and Mark is the head of facilities for Southern Vermont College, so he has good expertise in the area, as well as some advice from Don Keeland. He was kind of an at-large member. So one of the things that we talked about for doing it now is right now we know interest rates are rising, so we are hoping to get in before interest rates go up too much. We also know that prices are climbing, and that if we can get this done, it will save us a lot more money than waiting for 4 or 5 more years. It'll just be much more costly by then.
Another thing is that the Facilities Committee didn't find any huge projects in the near future which would allow for a big bond or something. So in the essence of that, we're looking at the fact that these things need to be taken care of sooner, and when this project is done, there will be more and more. And I hate to sit here and tell you that, but that's what happens when you own a home and you own a school system. Things always need to be, right from painting to leaky roofs to siding falling off the schools. And so this is all precipitated, and we have not completed a plan that will be like 5, 6 years down the road to what we do next.
Right. So this project, when we started working with Black River Design, and everything went on the table that needed to be done, and then they brought in the preliminary cost estimate, and it was between $6 and $7 million.
Staggering.
And everybody had sticker shock on the board, and the board referred it back to the committee to whittle it down to an amount that we thought that we could afford. So let's talk about the things that we left on the list and how we did it. Remember, we talked about the first consideration was safety. Then we talked about ADA accessibility. We talked about cost savings, like things that will bring
Right.
efficiencies to us.
Correct.
So we broke the project for this program into 3 sections. The first one is we'll talk about Fisher Elementary.
Yep.
So the first category we had was ADA accessibility. Some of by law, we know we have to be accessible to all people with disabilities, and we have just a few things on that list. But what we'd like to do is the first thing is renovate the classrooms with universally accessible restrooms.
Correct. So currently, in each elementary classroom, almost every classroom, there are 2 small water closets, bathrooms.
Very
which
small.
Are very small. Hardly enough room to walk into them, stand beside the door, and close it. That does not meet the ADA accessibility. So what we had discussed, and because most of these back each other up from one room to the other, is take the 2 that are there and make it a single access from one room, and then the other 2 would be from the opposite room. But that would give us enough room to make them ADA compliant with the grab
Right.
bars and et cetera.
Then we just have replaced the doorknobs, and I assume that's the levers.
Right, because we do still have a few knobs which are not accessible. So to become ADA accessible, we need to have a lever latch on those. So.
And have an ADA accessible drinking fountain, so
correct.
that children can access that.
Right, so you can pull up to it with a wheelchair and,
Right.
and you'd be able to use it.
Then we had a category, the building envelope. We want to replace the exterior doors
Yes, on
on Fisher.
almost every exterior door is a steel door. They've been there for 30 plus years, and every one of them has shown significant rot, rusting, decay at the bottom. So we can't get weather strips to fit them any longer to seal out the cold, and that's just it's a time factor thing. They just over time they go away. Several years ago, we had the multi-purpose edition re-sided, and due to the fact the product we used was a new product,
Was that cement board?
it is the cement board. It has not held up the way that it was originally designed. Industry-wide, they've found that. They've made improvements to it now, but we've got some of the first stuff that was out there. It has broke free, and a very large portion of the building has broke free on the multipurpose room and is actually coming off the building. So
It's just crumbling,
it's
right?
crumbling. And once it's exposed to moisture,
Right.
it just falls apart. So that all needs to be replaced and repainted.
Yeah.
If I may, for just a second, go back to the ADA accessibility and explain that ADA is American Disabilities Act.
Yep.
And they set rules and regulations for handicapped and whatnot. And there are places in our school system which do not meet those standards. And that's why we spoke about the things here. Plus, there's also a couple places where we need entryways that we need to put ramps in for emergency as well as entry for those in wheelchairs and those who are disabled.
Yep.
So that part of Fisher School, and there will be a little at the high school, is something that we're way behind on, and we need to catch up with it.
Yep. Then we have replaced the in-wall cafeteria tables at Fisher, and basically we have tables that come out of the wall, they fold out, and they are 30-plus years old.
Yep, and 2 of them are broke now. 2 of the 6 we had, one we had to completely remove because it had
Right.
broke to a point where it was unusable. We have a second one that is still usable, although it's getting to the point where that one will be removed before much longer as well. So, yeah, they all need to be updated.
Yeah, and that we've tried to, since I've been here,
Tried to
this
put
is
it in
my
the
3rd
budget.
year, we've tried to get it in the budget every year for 3 years.
Yep.
And every year, we just can't fit it in, but it's
Correct.
time there.
Well, it's a necessity to Fisher School because of the hot lunch, and the children need to have them safe so they don't come down on their head like they have in other places.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there again, through the years, and I'll use this term again, there was many Band-Aids put on it which just don't work anymore.
Right.
Right.
So we need to put in new tables at Fisher
Yep.
School.
The lock systems don't work any longer the way they're supposed to, so.
Right, and it is,
Yep.
and so I'm sure most of our public knows, but the gym doubles as the cafeteria. That's where the
Correct.
kids eat, which is why the tables fold out of the walls,
Right.
and then we put them back up so we can have PE classes.
Correct.
So the next section we have is electrical, and we're looking at a new phone system both for Fisher and the high school, so we clumped that together. And part of the reason is it's not 911 compliant, which means that if we had an emergency situation and called 911, they could identify what room
Correct.
the call came from, the emergency services,
Right.
which in a school like, the high school, it's fairly large. And we are not compliant in that. We got our report from the state for
Right.
the 911
Yes,
call.
we just did testing, and the system reports back that it comes to the correct address, but not the actual room of origin.
Right.
So
And then the other thing is
Yep.
the phone system is just old. It's
it is.
not just
It is.
911.
If we have bad weather outside, we get a lot of noise interference in the
Yeah.
system.
And when we had the power outage in that storm a
Yep.
few weeks ago,
Yes.
the entire
It
phone system
went
went down. We were communicating as administrators by texting each other on
Right.
our cell phones. And then the
Yep.
next day, Fisher's didn't come back up. We
No.
had to have a repair done.
Correct.
So it's slowly failing, and we
Right.
feel that that's a big safety issue for
It is.
our schools.
Yep.
You want to talk about the rest of these, Jamie, real quick?
Sure. Relighting the classrooms, the offices, and corridors. We had an audit done last fall through the superintendent's
And well, through the Vermont School Board Association.
School Board Association.
And
correct.
they're the ones that carry our insurance,
Right,
so they do
and
that.
so they had we had a gentleman come down from them who assessed the schools for energy efficiencies and different things that we could do to save energy. And seems like every 25 years, the lighting becomes another issue. You're either too bright or not bright enough. When the school was originally constructed in 1991, the lighting that was
that
put
the
in,
addition.
That was the addition.
the addition and the renovation of Fisher, right. It was at a level that they wanted things brighter, so they did more natural light with bigger windows,
Right.
things like that. And now they've found that the lighting itself that we have is too bright for the age group of children we have in there. So relighting the classrooms would be an energy efficiency
Yeah, we get more
savings
energy.
because we would go to an LED light,
Yep.
not as many lights, lower energy cost. As well as replacing the fire alarm control panel and additional panel boards for emergency responders. The systems we have, again, are very old. Finding replacement parts is almost non-existent now, both at the elementary and the high school. So to upgrade those so that our systems stay online is big.
Energy efficiency is a great thing, and we're going to strive in every area that we can to do that. But I want to just say also that a lot of these things are industry standards which
Yes.
have improved,
Correct.
changed and improved. It's not that we went out and picked them that we wanted to do this. It's that we have to upgrade and come into compliance with rules and regulations of today.
Higher standards.
Higher
Yeah,
standards.
Higher standards.
Right. Fire code is the next one. Myself as an emergency responder, I find this very important. Several of our emergency lighting systems are at the point of not working any longer because they're old, so we need to add some more to cover areas that weren't covered in the past, and again, bring them up to today's standards. We have a few electrical code things that we need to address, pinning up wires, things like that. And along with the additional panel board, additional fire alarm signal devices, that would be the pull stations and things like that to get better coverage.
Okay. Then we had a couple things where we wanted to do a little bit of reconfiguration, renovation. The existing art room has a storage closet adjacent to it that's actually used to be a little office.
Reading room.
A reading room, and we want to, there used to be a door there, we want to bring that back, basically, and have that for office space. You know, because things have changed in education over the years since the school was built, and we have more support services, you know, counselors, one-on-ones, where we need some small spaces, so that will take care of that. And then we want to look at the library and the computer lab and reconfigure those. And I will say that last spring, the librarians were really active in looking at what a 21st century library looks like for schools, and they want to go toward more of a 21st century learning center concept than your traditional library.
More
so that
media, less books.
Yep. And so reconfigure that to reflect those changes.
Right, and part of that is that some of our computer lab work is also taught by the librarians.
Right.
So bringing them together in one room would be a lot more beneficial.
Right.
And some of these things like these that we just barely spoke about, we're going to do in-house.
That's right.
As a cost savings, things that we can get done, Jamie, through the summertime, so that we're all set to go next year. And if you keep Black River Design and them people involved in it, it's just quite a bit more money. So we've decided to take on a lot of these projects, some of which we have conquered this last year.
Correct.
Yep.
And do them ourselves so that we're in charge and we get things done in more timely fashion.
Yep. So the next one is the HVAC, the heating system. And I'm just, before I turn it over to Jamie, just going to say that's really why this whole facilities project started, was the HVAC. And then it grew because we had all these other things we needed to do. And that was the point at which we decided to really pursue a larger loan.
Yes.
So talk about the HVAC.
So HVAC, this is our heating and ventilation at both schools. And what I've found since I started 4 years ago now, was that our systems have not been upgraded to a point where they're reading the levels of carbon dioxide and stuff like that they should be in the rooms, that our heating units themselves are not putting out the heat that they should be. We've got unit ventilators, which is the heater for each individual room, that are not working. The controls. In both schools, we have controls called front ends, DDC controls. Neither school has a system that is currently working the way it was designed to, or it should be now. So in order to keep track of set points, when no one is there, the school cools down and then comes back up to temperature. For the weekends, things like that, we have no control over that. So our boilers, our whole system just runs constantly, which uses a lot more fuel oil, hot water, electricity, all of that together. So in an effort to bring it up to today's standards so that we can, if a room or a boiler goes down with heat it will notify us through our phones or iPads, et cetera, so that we can address it. As it is now, we go away for a Thanksgiving weekend and leave on a Wednesday afternoon. A boiler could go down on Friday, and because no one is there until Monday again, we don't know. The building goes cold, and then...
And I think most people, well, I'll use me for an example, don't realize that schools have because it's a huge heating system, there's a
Correct.
lot of computer controls.
Right.
And if those go obsolete and they don't work,
Right.
you're operating in a very old-fashioned way.
Yes.
You know, we think of
So-
heating as, your furnace in the basement, but it's
Correct.
more
So
than that.
At the elementary school especially, we're using relays as opposed to a computer system to run the system now. Those relays are beginning to fail more often, and getting relays to replace those is harder to fit the system that's in. So it needs to be upgraded so that it is online. It's
Right.
with the current stuff.
The original relays, they don't even make.
They don't even make the
ones
original
anymore,
relays any longer, so now we're trying to adjust, and we have just, for instance, we had a pinched wire in the ceiling that shut down the heating on the one whole half of the building.
And some of the rooms were hot, and some of the rooms are cold.
And because we didn't have controls that would tell us where that problem was,
Right.
it took us 2 days of tracing wires and searching
Right.
in order to find that.
And then-
in cold weather in Vermont, where we are, with all the water pipes and stuff running through the school, not the heating system, because that's a glycol system, which shouldn't
Right, 'cause it didn't
freeze.
Right.
A freeze up or busted water pipe in the school would be massive.
Oh, it would be.
Yep.
And
You know.
we had that a few years ago. They had 1.5-inch water line that froze up,
Yep.
and it basically flooded half of the school.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and then when it gets complete, we estimate there'll be pretty substantial savings in
they
fuel
should
oil.
be, absolutely, we
That
should
would be-
see a good savings in fuel oil because the system will be running as it should. It'll
Right.
shut the boilers down to a lower temperature when it's
When nobody's there.
unoccupied at night.
And it won't be
so
running all the
It
time.
won't be running all the time.
Yeah, that'll be
So,
good.
Our hot water will be coming off of the hot water tank as it should be, and things like that.
So let's skip to the next one. So interior finishes, it's just flooring, floor grates, things like that. That's
Right.
pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
And then we have a couple of things under plumbing. I know the first two are in connection with our nurse.
Correct.
People don't realize we actually have washers and dryers in the school.
We do. We do have a
One.
very big need for a washer
Yeah.
dryer as well as a shower at the elementary,
Right.
which there is not currently. We do have the washer dryer there in a location far away from the nurse's office that uses them
Right.
all the time. So we would like to get those moved to her location. We have the room; it just needs some work to be done.
And then-
Mixing valves for the hot and cold water, and some insulating on the water pipes themselves. So
And to replace the water heater, that's the summer water heater, right?
that is the summer water heater,
Yeah.
correct? So that the boilers don't have to
Right.
run, so that it runs off of a energy efficient
Right.
system
And
as
most-
opposed to
Yeah.
running the boilers, using the fuel oil to heat.
Most schools have a
Little water.
smaller,
Right.
almost a household water heater for the summer because we do have need, we have summer camp or whatever,
Right.
or summer school. We do have some need for water, but not like we do
Right.
during the school year.
Right.
So
The-
it saves us a lot of money.
We've got the program that comes
Yeah.
in and does the summer lunches
Yep.
for the community. So they do need some hot water, but to run the boiler for the whole year for that is just astronomical.
Right. Then we have security, and as people might want to know, we've had a lot of security upgrades at the school over the past 2 years. We put the first part of a 3-part camera system into the
Correct.
high school this last summer. And 2 days after we put it in, just so people know, someone tried to break in the school and we were able to catch them. So it earned its money right there. But with recent events, we have actually pushed forward our security cameras, and
Yes.
we're getting more cameras at the high school and cameras outside Fisher. Actually, as we speak right now, they're installing the Fisher cameras. But, and those were all paid for through grants, and then we use some sinking funds. But we do have some more security that we'd like to do. We want to do a door access system, which we call it the swipe card.
Right.
It eliminates keys. We can track where people are, who
Right.
comes in the building.
That way, if someone is terminated from the school or doesn't need access after hours, that is all programmable. So
Right.
they don't have 24-hour access to the building any longer. They've got from a certain point to a certain point.
Or if we have coaches, they just get it during the
Right,
season,
they get
then
it
you
for the
can
season
turn it
and then
off.
it's shut off. So one thing we found is we have a lot of keys out and don't know where they all are.
Too many people accessible to their
Right.
being able to get into
Correct.
school.
But it's,
And we're trying to put a grip on that so that it's only those who are necessary
Right.
to be getting in and out. And then with the relocating or fixing up where you go into school, this is a big security issue in a lot of places. Although we're not in a terrible zone, it's still something that we feel is very important, that we don't let people into our school system who should not be in there.
right, so it's basically putting,
Into the building, I should
Right.
say, not
Correct.
into the system.
it's just updating it. Okay, do you want to talk about the gym repair next? Or let's talk about the gym repair.
Okay.
So on the gym, there was a lot of talk about some structural issues and all that. We'll get into that. But what finally happened was the board decided to get an engineer in so we would really know exactly what structural issues we were dealing with, what we needed to do. And so this is the bare bones list, I guess, and of what we need to do in the gym to bring it up to be safe structurally and
Energy-wise.
energy also.
Which was part of the process to start this was energy as well, and the fact that we were losing so much heat out through the roof and it was causing ice
Right.
buildups, which were very dangerous for anybody walking in and out of the building. So we got looking at that, and that's where we found the engineering issues with the building, is looking at the insulation in the walls, in the ceiling, things like that. Things didn't look right, so the board decided to have the engineer come in and take a very close look at the building, structure-wise, energy-wise, and stuff, and found some things that weren't up to code,
Right.
today's standards. When the
Right.
gym was built, it flew, it went through, but in today's code, it doesn't meet the standards.
Why don't you talk about the big things, because
Okay.
this is kind of
So, right,
the walls and
again, this started with the heating and the ice buildup, the safety concerns. So what we found is that in the roof structure, we had very minimal insulation. So we have ceiling tiles in the gym. The lights are below that, and then there's just very minimal insulation, only about 8 inches of insulation in there. And then it's the framing, the roof is actually fastened directly to the framing, which is not a standard. There should be an additional
roof deck.
sub deck in there,
Yeah.
roof deck, and then insulation with framing, and then the roof would be not attached directly to the structure.
And that's in
as it
case
is.
of high winds and
So
things like that.
It is. It also, with the roof being fastened directly to the framing, it doesn't give the roof any room to move with
That's what I
expansion
meant,
and contraction. So what it's doing is wearing on the entire building, which is wearing out the roofing as well as the framing.
So we have to put
Remembering
bracing up
that
there
the-
too.
Right.
The heat ducts are up on the ceiling.
Correct.
And heat rises.
Yep.
So there's new paddle fans in this deal to push the heat back down someday down the road, the heat should be moved down closer to the floor. That's my opinion. But the heat is all right there, so heat rises, and that's what is helping create a lot of the friction with the roof up.
Right.
Right. So,
So the 5 things that are structural is we have to repair and reinforce the gym-bearing walls.
Correct.
And that's to
So-
there's no rebar in them?
there is no rebar,
Nope.
there's no structural strength within the walls. It is just an 8-inch concrete wall. Very tall for what it is, for an
And
8-inch
if you were to
wall.
build it today, it would be
So
12-inch?
the walls most likely
Yeah.
should have been 12-inch walls. There should have been rebar in the walls. On top of that, horizontal and vertical bracing is supposed to be every 20 feet. We are currently at 40 feet
Right.
with no cross bracing.
Yep.
So we're very limited. That limits how high you can go with a wall. We are beyond those limits with no bracing, as well as being too far apart between.
I was on the board when that gym was built, and at that point in time, as we spoke about, industry standards, we were A-okay.
Yep.
It was done with what we had to do then.
Right.
I will not say it was a Taj Mahal, it was just a Chevy Impala, but it was what we could afford. And we went by the standards, and now, as standards have changed, we have to change and come
Right.
in compliance.
Right.
Because this is an emergency access point for the whole community,
Right.
we have the generator which runs the entire building when the power's off. We need to make sure that this building will withstand the winds, the snow loads, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And right now, we're borderline
Right.
at best. So to put the money into the building, strengthen it, put the roof on it that it should have.
Yep.
These are all things
And
that we
insulate it.
insulate it.
And then when we're in there, we are going to relight it because everything's going to
Correct.
be opened up.
Right,
which-
everything on,
Yeah.
hanging from the ceiling
Right.
now will come down. It'll be strengthened, and then everything will go back in.
And a
afterwards.
new roof over the gym porch.
Yes, so
and
right
that's-
now, because there's so much ice buildup on the main roof, when it comes down onto the walkway roof, it has actually totally destroyed the roof below it.
Right.
It's crushed it, the
So,
fins are tipped over.
right. So it's not, a new gym. It's just
No.
really doing all the things we need to do to keep it safe and
Correct.
standing for another 30 years. Okay. And then we had some things just for the high school. And again, we looked at the accessibility for the ADA for disabled people. And one of the things we looked at is the gym restrooms, which if you go in there, they're very tight. You couldn't get a wheelchair in there or anything. So
Right.
that was one of them. To reconfigure the locker room, I guess that's
A renovation.
Renovation.
Just clean it up.
Yeah. But also it would be like the showers
Right,
and
the
stuff
showers
would be.
are not really used any longer. So reconfiguring that area
Yep.
to make it useful.
Yep.
So it's
And
not just empty space.
That being said, along with what Jamie said earlier about this being a
Community.
community in
Emergency
case of
shelter.
emergency center, we need to have a place where people could
That's
take
right.
a shower
Right.
if they had to stay for a few days. And
Yep.
Yep.
right now they're
Right, and the other thing we also talked about was the one bathroom right by Ashley
Right,
Hoyt's
we have
athletic.
one-
That could be like a family bathroom where
Correct.
we would have actually changing stations, so
Yep.
when parents come or
Gender
people there.
neutral.
Gender neutral,
Diapers,
that whole
all
thing.
that.
Then we have to relocate the stage lift a little bit.
Correct.
Because it's.
So we have a stage for the ADA compliance, a lift to get onto the stage, and
Right.
currently the lift we have is non-repairable. It is also through a closet to get to it. So what
Right.
we would look at there is making its own hallway and
So that-
relocating it a little
so
bit
that-
so that it will bring you from the gym floor level up onto the stage.
Yeah, for wheelchair.
For
Yeah, We
wheelchair,
had somebody that,
right,
for
walker.
graduation or something, we
Correct.
have to do that by law. Yep. And then the other thing is wheelchair accessible lab stations in the
Right.
science
Yep.
area.
So the science area, the lab stations we have now are too tall for wheelchair accessible.
Yep.
And
So
you
to
really-
bring a couple of those down to
Right, in each
the proper level in
science
each
room.
science room. Yep.
Then we have the building envelope, and I know we've replaced a lot of windows.
We did 22 windows a few years back. What we had was very large wooden clad windows. They're semi-vinyl on the outside and wood on the inside. Because they're so large, they don't work. They're very heavy. They've bowed over the years. They've gotten to a point where the teachers can't open them, or if they get them open, they can't get them closed. So we've gone around, we've secured all of what we have, but what we're looking to do is to do new vinyl replacement windows with a permanent window at the top, and then 2 smaller units that are able to be opened and closed.
And that will complete all of our window
That will
renos.
yes, if we do the courtyard and the few in the front, that will replace all the windows. Much more energy efficient, easier for the students and the teachers to use, and they look really nice.
Yeah, they do. Then we have repoint brick. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You just have to do that every few 10, 20 years.
Yep.
And then we have repair and replace the slate roof, which is
Correct.
right in the courtyard also.
In the courtyard as well. Because it is the cold area of the building, it is the wet area of the building, it is damp, and we've found that the slate is really, slate's supposed to last 75 to 100 years, and that's the age of the building. So we're at that time frame where we've got to do something different, where we're getting a lot of leaks in the slate area.
Yeah.
Too many to keep picking and picking and picking each little one. So it may be the time to remove some of the slate in one section. The slate you can save, you use to repair the rest of the
Right.
building, but put a solid roof on that we can manage.
At the same time, we have still has some flat roof up there.
We do.
Which has rubber membrane on it.
Yep.
Some of it's 14, 15 years old, and being out in the sun and the
17.
cold, 17.
17 years
and
old.
freezing, and we've had a couple little leaks. We're trying to keep ahead of that, but
Right.
there's an area there where we need to really step it up a little bit.
Yeah, and that rubber membrane transitions into the slate roof.
Yep.
And that has been a very big leak area where they transition. And
So-
we've been continuing to re-seam all the joints and the edges where these transitions are.
And I know that our community members will wonder, we did a roofing project 2 summers ago, but
Right.
most of it was on Fisher.
Yes.
And then there was a portion of Arlington High School that was
Right,
done.
it was
but
only
this-
the back portion of the science room wing.
Right, so this is a different area of the
This
building.
is a
that
different
needs to be
area of the
done.
building.
The older section.
Yep, the original section.
Right.
Yep, from 1941, 41, 42.
41, 42.
Yep,
Okay.
After it burnt down.
correct, twice.
So then we are also doing some HVAC heating
Correct.
system, and similar to Fisher,
It
the
is
same
similar
problems.
to Fisher. There was a system put in about 20 years ago at the high school that is about 14 years out of date at this point because the system is no longer, we can't get parts to replace this system anymore. So it needs to be replaced. Again, we have 4 boilers at the high school compared to 2 at the elementary. We don't have any control over those boilers. So they run constantly, and
Right, it's the same
they're
thing.
not
It's
the same as a
inefficient.
household boiler.
Right.
When they run, we're going through 100 to 150 gallons of oil a day.
That's a lot.
So
Yeah, so then we have more security, and again, we have, like I said earlier, we've been working on the security cameras, but we also want to put a vestibule in at the main entrance of the high school.
right,
And we need to put a little heat in there, but what it does is it really creates like an envelope where somebody comes in one door, They have to get buzzed in before they can go
through
into
the
the
second
main.
tour.
And many
Right.
schools have gone to that system.
Yep, it's one that's being pushed highly by law enforcement
Right.
as a secondary stop before an intruder comes in.
Right.
So it slows them down. It gives anyone else time to flee and get away.
And call for help.
And call for help.
Yep. Presently, at the high school, if you go in the front door, you're in.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can head
There's
in any direction
nothing.
you want.
Yep.
Right.
And
So both schools will get that system
Both.
where there's a second set of locking doors
Right.
before they can
Absolutely.
actually
Yep.
access. Okay, and then we're going to do, again, some relighting of the classrooms, offices, and corridors, just
Correct.
like Fisher. I don't
Yep.
think we need to repeat that. And then the fire seal conduit penetrations, which you can explain, Jamie.
Right. So
the fire-
over the years, with things that have been done, we end up going through firewalls and things like that with conduit, with wires and stuff, and not all of them have been sealed back up to fire code. So those areas need to be repaired and put back together. It's concrete walls, it's fire code sheetrock, it's things like that that need to be put back together to create that fire break in the
Right.
event of a fire.
Right. So this brings us to the end of what's it all going to cost? So what we did is we broke it down, and so we've got the total for the high school. Well, we'll start with the total for the gym
Yep.
is $672,055.
Correct.
Then all of the rest of the work at the high school that needs to be done is another $343,060. And then the total for Fisher is $618,060. And what I'd like the public to know is one of the reasons why we broke the gym out separately is that project will be run by Black River Design. And that's one that we have to get permission from the state for all of this.
Right.
But there are some state statutes around that, and we really need the architects and the engineers so we know that that gym is done right.
Right.
But the other projects we're going to manage in-house.
Correct.
And
Design builds.
design
Yep.
builds or, subcontracting out, et cetera. So the cost for everything is $1,633,175. And that might seem like a lot, but when we consider that we started at $6 million, we've really knocked quite a bit off there. And I'm just going to make a couple comments that people should realize is that we've tried really hard to knock some of the things off by doing them a little bit at a time.
Right.
We've written grants. We can get grants through VisBit for security that we've mentioned. We're going to write a grant that's a 50-50 match for the phone system. That it's a 911 compliant grant. And there are a couple things that we actually took off this project that we hope to do in the future. And some of them we're hoping to actually do through private funding. I know that one of the initial projects that was included was the elementary school wanted an outdoor classroom.
Correct.
And Principal Lacrosse said she thought she could do fundraising like she did for the playground to do that. And we had a lot of discussion about updating the Arlington Memorial High School Marsh Library
Yes.
into a 21st century learning center. And in the future, I think Principal Stewart is going to be working on doing some private funding to do that. So they're not gone. We're just looking at doing this really economically for our taxpayers.
Funding them without tax dollars.
Right, exactly.
One of the other things that was big at Fisher School, which we'll be investigating further, is the entering the property and
yes.
exiting the
Yes.
property
Yep.
when school opens and when school closes. We've been lucky, but it can be a very dangerous situation with kids going in and out of the school and the buses and the way the traffic is allowed to flow all in front of the school. We've got a plan, but we held back on it for right now. But that is safety, got to happen sometime.
Right.
Because safety is the issue with that
Right.
at Fisher School.
Right. So this project really is things we consider essential
Right.
that are either safety, ADA compliant, or really energy efficient
Correct.
things. And a couple educational, like the library for the elementary school.
Right.
And we will be having an informational meeting at the MAC
Yeah.
Performing Arts Center. I believe it is scheduled for February 15th at
Yep.
6 o'clock. And the whole board will be there. I think Jamie will be there. I'll be there. And our architect, John Hemmelgarn, is coming to answer questions also. So I think at that meeting, we'll go through this again a little bit more briefly and open it up for questions and comments.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that's it for today,
Yeah.
unless you guys have anything to add.
I thank both of you for coming, taking time, and helping us
Yep.
explain to the people a little bit, and we will move forward. Thank you.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.